mula Zamboanga del Norte, bayan ng kanyang kapanganakan. Lumipad sa Cebu si Resil Mojares upang maging bihasa sa akademikong pag-aaral ng wikang Ingles. Taong 1979, nagtapos ng doktorado sa panitikan mula sa Universidad ng Pilipinas. Isang malikhaing manunulat, higit na nakilala siya bilang kritiko at kultural na historiador. Kinilala ng Anthropos, isang pangunahing diurnal sa antropolohiya mula sa bansang Olandes, ang kontribusyon ni Mojares sa cultural anthropology at araling kultura sa pamamagitan ng kanyang pagkakatatag ng Cebuano Studies Center sa University of San Carlos na nagpalakas sa aralin ng Pilipinas ukol sa Visayas. Professor Emeritus sa University of San Carlos at ngayon ay pambansang alagad ng sining para sa panitikan, Resil Mojares.
Coming home. When I was a child, our house in Dipolog was the most imposing in the block. Built in the early 1950s, it was, I remember, a white-painted, two-story wooden house with arched windows and an added foyer, banked by a cement wall made out to look like it was made of large, irregular blocks of stone. Vivid in my mind is the way the windows in the front yard were alive with flowering plants. My mother had a passion for greenery. Fruit trees in the backyard, and out front, whatever was the horticultural fashion of the time, from cacti to bougainvillea. I remember the roomy interiors. It was a house a child could lose himself in. Nooks to hide in during an evening's game of hide and seek. Corners to cower in the times of household crises, or just airy spaces to feel expansive in, delighting in the pleasures of family, love, and youth. Today, only one who has lived in the house can imagine what it once was. Squeezed in between two firewalls the neighbors had built, as though fearful of infecting decay, the house appears to have curiously diminished in size, almost like a living person shrunk by age. Weather-beaten, patched up, deserted by many of those who once lived there, sons who have moved to other places, other homes. Its interiors repartitioned to make room for renters. Home has receded into a third of the old house where my elderly parents live. What does a house speak? It speaks many things. It speaks of certain enduring affections. It speaks as well of absence, neglect, common infidelities, yet so insidious, of distance, distraction, forgetting. I have been to the house but 3 times in the past 20 years, quick visits in which affection is no longer the child's, simple and unalloyed, but one shadowed by separateness and some nameless guilt.
Handumon ko ikaw, bisag na hilayo, dambuhon ko ikaw. Bisan sa damgulang, pakiton mo ako, akong pinanggap mo. Gimingaw ako, gugma kanimo, luha tay mahimo, ug paghandom lang, gimingaw ako.
Last month, I went home to see my mother for the last time, to see her laid to her final rest. After many years, I lived in the house again, catching snatches of shallow sleep, mostly staying up for the nights of prayer and vigil. And I was visited by the sense of how much of the house had become alien space. Space had been redrawn to create rooms in which strangers lived. From within the house came unfamiliar sounds. The mind has to focus on those once well-loved details of the house, now strangely altered, lost. A corner where once the family altar was. The window that looked out into the trees. The space where once upon a time a boy slept. There is comfort in the fact that, in a wake, the house is alive with people, relatives, friends, and neighbors who come to stay in the dark hours to form a warm refuge away from grief. Yet even such comfort does not come unmixed. I meet old classmates, childhood friends, former helpers, and distant relatives I had not seen for years. In touching of hands and the exchange of greetings, I am grateful that they should remember as I am inwardly shamed, vainly trying to fish out of the past a face I can remember, a name. On the day of the burial, we all stepped out of the house to accompany the coffin to the town's central school, where a necrological service for my mother was held. Here in this school, just across the street from our house, I had gone through the grades. My mother, a teacher, principal, supervisor, but above all, my mother. The procession then wended its way down the main street to the old church, then finally to the cemetery at the edge of the town. That night, without her, the house, now largely deserted by those who had kept vigil, seemed even stranger, more bereft. The house will remain for years, and perhaps in time it will be lost. Houses are such fragile structures. There are things other than earthquakes of which we must fear. And memory itself is a house that, in the end, cannot endure. My hope is that it shall prove more tenacious and that I shall remember love, move through the rooms of this house.
Marynor Madamesila, RJ Balledos, at Teroy Guzman. Upang iabot ang sertipiko, medalya at tropeyo ng pagkilala kay Dr. Resil Mojares, pambansang alagad ng sining para sa panitikan ng taon 2018 at dangal ng UP Diliman, Dr. Amy Sue Martinez, Direktor ng Opisina ng Ugnayang Internasyonal ng Diliman, at kinatawan ni Dr. Evangeline C. Amor, Vice Chancellor sa Gawaing Akademiko at Tagapangulo ng Linggo ng Parangal 2019. Kasama si Dr. Mary Cynthia Rose B. Bautista, Vice Pangulo sa Gawaing Akademiko ng Universidad ng Pilipinas at kinatawan ni Pangulong Concepcion, at muling ibinabalik si Chancellor Tan. Upang basahin ang pagkilala kay Dr. Mojares, University Professor Emeritus Hemino Henson Abad ng Kolehiyo ng Arte at Literatura. Muli, University Professor Emeritus Hemino Henson Abad upang basahin ang pagkilala.
Dahil sa kanyang mga likha bilang isang natatanging guro at scholar, manunulat ng sanaysay at iba pang malikhaing sulatin, at bilang isang kultural at pampanitikang historiador na hanggang ngayon ay nagsisilbing mga modelo para sa mga mag-aaral, guro at mananaliksik sa larang ng kulturang Pilipino, at sa kanyang pangunguna sa pagpapakilala ng regional na panitikan at kasaysayan sa pamamagitan ng kanyang mga akdang pampanitikan at kritisismo na kinikilala hindi lamang bilang mahalagang kontribusyon sa araling Pilipino, kundi maging sa araling pangtimog silangang Asya. Iginagawad kay Resil Mojares, pambansang alagad ng sining para sa panitikan 2018, ang pagkilala bilang bulwagan ng dangal ng Universidad ng Pilipinas. Ngayong ika-18 ng Hunyo, taong 2019, sa Bulwagang, Villamor ng Universidad ng Pilipinas, Diliman. Sa okasyon ng pagbubukas ng UP Diliman, Linggo ng Parangal 2019 at pagdiriwang ng ika-111 taon ng pagkakatatag ng Universidad ng Pilipinas.
Mga kaibigan, Resil Mojares, pambansang alagad ng sining panitikan. Maraming salamat po.